I told you my body roll was on point. Magic Mike's Last Dance dances into theaters this weekend. Well, switching gears, when it comes to mental health in the Black community, it's for some a conversation that is fraught with shame, fear, and misunderstanding. Younger millennials and Gen Z are doing the work to change perceptions, like Dr.Chanda Reynolds, who has created Minds of the Culture, a safe space for Black people to learn more about mental health and also engage their faith. Watch.
Happy Black History Month. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a celebratory time, right? We are celebrating the culture, past, present, and future. And something that you're so open about in conversation is the notion of transgenerational trauma. We hear that a lot in conversations when it comes to people of the Black community. Expound upon that for our audience.
Absolutely, yeah. So transgenerational trauma, that basically is where a group of individuals experiences ancestral trauma. For instance, the Black community and our history of racism and in that enslaved period during that time. And that same group of individuals experiences continued discrimination and racism on a regular basis.
So the word trans means to move, movement. How do these traumas manifest themselves in younger generations?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a whole body of research out there called epigenetics, and it actually looks at how individuals who experience trauma were not just impacted psychologically or emotionally, but it also impacts us on a biological level. So it impacts our brain structure, our genetics. And so if we think about it from a biological level, we're passing down, our ancestors passed down that same trauma, which was stored in their bodies, onto their children and their children's children, and that continues to manifest today. And we see the product of that today from an emotional standpoint, from a psychological standpoint, as well as biologically.
With Mind of the Culture, your resource for mental health for the Black community, you are loud, and rightfully so, about the different ways that we move through mental health, from PTSD to anxiety to depression. You even have merch that says, hey, I have PTSD. Say something about it, right? And you're saying something about it. Why that approach?
Yeah, so I'm a firm believer. I like for my apparel to start conversations. So anytime I go into the airport and I'm wearing my We Have PTSD t-shirt, I always talk about like, oh, well, this isn't actually a diagnosis related to shell shock or just relating to individuals who are in the Army, but individuals of the Black community can experience PTSD by the things that we experience in our communities on the day-to-day. So it's really about normalizing those conversations and recognizing that, you know, a lot of our communities are comprised of like traumatic situations, and it does impact us.
It does impact us. I just want to give our audience something that I pulled from the site, which is, like I said, a wealth of knowledge and a very valuable resource. And you say that we believe you can go to church and still go to therapy.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a very nuanced conversation in this Black History Month for 2023. What is that conversation you want to further for our community?
Yeah, so I just want to continue the conversation that we are allowed to go to therapy. We are allowed to seek resources. The Black community experiencing depression, anxiety, trauma, it doesn't mean that we're weak. It doesn't mean that we're bad people, but it just means that we are human who experience emotions. And that's really all it is.
Well, now, may the church say amen.
Man.
Again, that resource is mindsoftheculture.org, and the mind behind that resource is Dr. Chanda Reynolds. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.